You know, it's wild, man. There are certain teams in sports that don't just win games. They create eras, they build legacies that feel bigger than the sport itself. And Liverpool under Klopp has been exactly that. It's been like this roller coaster ride where you've seen chaos turn into brilliance, doubters turning into believers, a team that went from almost broken to becoming one of the most feared machines in world football. And that's the kind of story that sucks you in because it's not just about football anymore. It's about energy, about passion, about people connecting to something that feels unstoppable. But here's the crazy part. Every era has its peak. Every wave eventually crashes. And the question now is, are we watching the beginning of the end of Klopp's Liverpool, or are we witnessing the start of an evolution into something new? Because the signs are there on both sides, the glory and the cracks, the legends fading and the young guns rising. And that's why this whole conversation matters, because you're not just talking about a club, you're talking about a phenomenon. So buckle up. We're about to dive into one of the most fascinating questions in football right now. Man, the rise of Klopp's Liverpool is honestly one of the craziest transformations you'll ever see in sports. Like this dude walks into Anfield back in 2015, and the whole vibe around the club was flat. The fans were frustrated. The team was living in the shadow of its history. And then suddenly he's like, we're going to turn doubters into believers. And he actually does, not overnight, but with this wild energy that felt infectious. He brought in that heavy metal football where it's full throttle, nonstop pressing, chaotic but beautiful, and the fans ate it up because it felt alive, it felt dangerous, it felt like Liverpool was scary again. And piece by piece, he built this machine. He grabs players like Salah, Mane, Firmino, guys who weren't even global superstars at the time, and he turns them into world beaters, and that front three became straight up legendary, just terrorizing defenses with speed and creativity. Then you add in Van Dijk, who instantly changes the defense, Alisson, who makes saves like his life depends on it, Trent bombing down the right, pinging passes like a quarterback, Robertson flying up the left like a madman, and suddenly the whole system just clicked. And the craziest part is it wasn't just about talent, it was about mentality. Klopp had them believing they could beat anyone. Like they'd walk into the Etihad or Camp Nou and play like they owned the place. And that energy spread to the fans. Anfield went from being a little subdued to this absolute madhouse again where teams would crumble just from the noise. And it all built to those insane nights like the 4-0 comeback against Barcelona, which honestly feels like a movie scene. And then finally the big one, Champions League in 2019, lifting that trophy after so many heartbreaks, and then the Holy Grail, the Premier League in 20, ending 30 years of waiting, and people forget how insane that season was. Liverpool weren't just good, they destroyed the league. They were so dominant, it felt like a machine fueled by passion, tactics, and Klopp's insane charisma. And for a while it really felt like Liverpool were the kings of Europe again, and all of it started because this crazy German coach showed up with a smile, a hug, and a belief system that completely rewired the DNA of the club. It's wild, man, because when you look at Liverpool now compared to those peak years, you can feel the cracks showing. Like the signs of decline aren't just in the results, but in the whole aura of the team. That invincible, relentless vibe isn't there in the same way. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that you can't sustain that heavy metal football forever. The squad looks tired at times. The pressing isn't as sharp. They're not suffocating teams like they used to. And when you're watching them, you see these moments where the midfield gets overrun. Guys don't track back the same way. Injuries pile up and suddenly they look human. And for a team that was once this unstoppable juggernaut, that's a big shift. And losing Mane was a massive blow too, because he was that spark, that chaos factor on the left. And without Salah looks more isolated, Firmino's gone. Henderson and Milner, who were like the heart and lungs of the dressing room, are out. And what you're left with is a team in transition but not quite fully rebuilt, and in that messy middle ground you see them struggle, dropping points against teams they used to smash, struggling against deep blocks, leaking silly goals, and people start questioning if Klopp's philosophy is burning out. Like this style requires insane physical and mental intensity, and after 7-8 years that grind catches up with not just the players but maybe Klopp too. You look at him on the sidelines and yeah, he's still animated, still that fist-pumping dude, but you can see the frustration creeping in more. The arguments with refs, the press conferences where he looks drained. Like the magic is still there, but flickering instead of burning. And that's the scary part, because once the aura fades, opponents smell blood. They don't walk into Anfield terrified the way they used to. They believe they can nick points, and when that belief flips, it changes everything. So yeah, the signs of decline aren't like this sudden collapse. It's more like erosion. Little by little, the walls that Klopp built so strong are starting to crumble, and the big question is whether this is just a dip, like a natural cycle before the rebuild, or whether it's the beginning of the end for this iconic era. The squad transition at Liverpool is one of those things that feels like watching a band you love change its lineup, like the sound is still kind of there, but it's not the same vibe anymore. And that's exactly what's happening with Klopp's team, because for years it was all about that legendary front three, Salah, Mane, Firmino. These guys were like this perfect storm of pace, creativity, and chemistry. And then one by one, they start to fade out. Mane goes to buy, Firmino leaves after being that selfless workhorse for so long. And now Salah's the last one standing, and even he's getting older, still elite, but not the same explosion he had a few years ago. And when you look at the midfield, it's the same story. The old guard of Henderson, Milner, Wijnaldum, these were the guys who kept the engine room ticking with insane energy and leadership. And now they're gone too, so Klopp's had to start this rebuild with new faces. Like Darwin Núñez, who's got raw talent but still feels like chaos in a bottle. Luis Diaz, who's electric but injuries slowed him down. Cody Gakpo trying to find his role. And then the big midfield reinvention with guys like Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, all super talented, but they don't yet have that battle-hardened presence that the old midfield had. That's where you see the awkwardness of transition, because you can feel the team searching for a new identity. They're not the old Liverpool, but they're not quite the new Liverpool either. It's like a reboot that hasn't fully clicked yet. And you can tell Klopp is trying to balance the emotional connection with the old Warriors while pushing these younger guys to step up. But that's hard, man, because replacing leaders like Henderson and Mane isn't just about skill. It's about that grit, that mentality in the dressing room. The new guys still have to prove they can carry that weight. So the transition is necessary. No team can stay the same forever. But it's also messy, and in that gap between eras, the results can get shaky. The confidence can dip. And the fans start asking if this is evolution or decline. And the reality is it's probably both, because you're watching one chapter close while the next one is still being written. And nobody knows yet if the new cast can create something as iconic as the one that came before. Klopp's energy and philosophy is honestly one of the most fascinating things in football, because it's not just about tactics, it's about this raw, emotional, almost spiritual connection he creates with his team and the fan. Like, you watch him on the touchline and it feels like he's plugged into some crazy current. He's celebrating goals like a fan, he's screaming at refs, he's hugging players like they're his own kids. And that passion is contagious. It spreads through the squad, through the stadium, even through the TV screen, and the philosophy behind it all is this insane commitment to intensity. That heavy metal football he always talks about, where it's high press, high risk, high reward. 11 guys moving like one organism, hunting the ball, suffocating opponents until they break. And it's beautiful because it's chaos that somehow works like a machine. And that takes buy-in, it takes belief. Because you can't run like that for 90 minutes unless you're fully committed to the guy leading you. Klopp has this rare ability to make players believe in something bigger than themselves. He convinces them to suffer together, to bleed for the team, and when it works, it looks like a force of nature. But here's the thing, man, that kind of philosophy has a cost. It burns bright, but it burns hard, and after years of playing that way, you start to wonder if the fire can stay lit, because the energy isn't just physical, it's emotional too. And you see the toll it takes, the exhaustion, the injuries, the dips in intensity. But what makes Klopp so unique is that even when the system falters, his energy alone still feels like it can drag a team over the line. Like those fist pumps at Anfield aren't just for show, they're fueled, they're this symbolic reminder of what the whole thing's about. And in a way, that's his true philosophy. It's not just gig compressing or tactics on a whiteboard. It's about creating a culture where effort and belief are non-negotiable, where even if you're not the most talented player, you play like your life depends on it. And that's why his teams resonate with people, because it feels raw, it feels human, and it feels like something you can only build when the guy in charge has this almost manic energy that refuses to accept anything less than total commitment. The future of Liverpool is one of those questions that feels like you're staring at a fork in the road, where both paths could lead to greatness or disaster, depending on what decisions get made and how much belief is left in the tank. Because on one hand, you look at this squad and you see all the raw potential, the young midfield with guys like Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, Curtis Jones stepping into bigger roles, Darwin Núñez figuring out how to turn all that wild energy into consistent goal, Luis Diaz when he's fit bringing that spark on the wing. And you start to think, yeah man, this could be the next wave. This could be Klopp building his second great Liverpool team. But then on the other hand, you see the crown and the aging stars like Salah still world class, but inevitably slowing down. Van Dijk not quite the unbeatable wall he used to be. Alisson bailing them out way too often. And you wonder how long those pillars can keep carrying the load. And the biggest piece in all of this is Klopp himself, because his whole philosophy is tied to his insane energy and emotional connection. But how sustainable is that when you've been in the trenches for almost a decade? Can he reinvent himself? Can he rebuild without burning out? Or does it get to a point where the message doesn't land the same way with the new generation? And that's the scary but fascinating part, because Liverpool right now isn't in free fall. They're still competitive. They're still fighting for trophy, but you can feel that delicate balance, where one bad transfer window, one key injury or one wrong tactical shift could flip everything. So the future depends on whether Klopp and the club can adapt. Can they move past the nostalgia of that first great era and build something fresh without trying to copy the past? Because football doesn't wait. The Premier League is too ruthless. City's not slowing down. Arsenal's rising. Newcastle's throwing money around. And if Liverpool hesitates, they risk fading into that cycle of nearly clubs again. But if they get it right, if the young talent clicks, if Klopp still has the fire, then we might be talking about Liverpool not as the team that once was great, but as the one that refused to let the story end too soon. So when you really sit back and look at the whole picture, Klopp's Liverpool is like one of those wild rides that you never forget, man. It starts with chaos and passion. It peaks with glory. And then it hits that point where you're asking yourself if the magic is still there or if we're just holding on to memories. But that's the beauty of it, because football isn't some sterile numbers game. It's this living, breathing story where every season could be the last dance or the beginning of a whole new chapter. And with Liverpool right now, you feel both of those vibes at once. Like, yeah, maybe the era is winding down, maybe the legs aren't as fresh, maybe the message isn't hitting with the same punch. But at the same time, you see those kids running around in midfield, you see Klopp still fist-pumping the Kop, and you think maybe this is just evolution, not the end. And that's what makes it so damn fascinating, because whatever happens, you know it's going to be intense, it's going to be emotional, and it's going to be worth watching. So if you're a Liverpool fan, you gotta strap in and enjoy it while it lasts, because eras don't last forever, but the memories do. And even if this is the last chapter, what a crazy book it's been. If it's not, then buckle up, because part 2 might be just around the corner. And either way, man, that's football at its best. Raw, unpredictable, and unforgettable. So good luck to Liverpool, good luck to Klopp, and good luck to the fans who ride every high and low with it, because you guys are in for one hell of a journey. And thank you for sticking around and vibing with me through this whole thing. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you carry that same energy, that same passion, into whatever comes next in your own lives, because that's the real win, man. Taking that fire with you beyond the game.